Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you calling in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Today we are coming to you from the beautiful town of Remington in Indiana. Hey, we don't want you to miss an episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast, so please be sure to subscribe to us. You can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is JainaThatch. She is the author of My Superhero Mind. Joining us on the line right now from Tampa in Florida, she is the author of a great book called My Superhero Mind. Please welcome to the show, Dr. JainaThatch. Jaina, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Jed. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for being here, and I love the title of your book, My Superhero Mind. Tell us all about it, please.
Yeah, my book was written about my daughter, Isla. I'm a mom of 3 boys. Isla is my 3rd child. And so I had 2 boys before her. And when I was expecting with her, I really started to look at the world differently, in regards to women, who I was as a woman, who I would want her to be, that really kind of, she really changed my perspective on things before she was even born. And, really hard thinking about, where we are culturally, especially with social media and all the influences that our young girls have today. I really wanted to start a strong foundation of teaching her that her self-worth really comes from within and comes from using her beautiful mind, her super powerful mind. So when she was born, and I always wanted to write a children's book, but from when my oldest was born, but it really wasn't until I had a little girl that the poem came to me and I was truly inspired by her. And when she was born, she wasn't your typical little girl who gravitated towards princesses. She saw herself as a superhero. So every time we would go out to the store, or if it were Halloween, or anytime she could dress up, she would want to dress up as Rey from Star Wars, or Batgirl, or Supergirl, any superhero she loved. And she actually started dressing in her brother's hockey gear as well, because she thought she was just this little super powerful girl, and she felt beautiful in superhero clothing and even hockey gear. It was pretty interesting. And so one day she came to me and she was standing in front of me and she had her brother's hockey gear on, and she posed and she was like flexing her muscles, and she said, "Mom, look how strong I am." And I thought to myself, wow, look at how beautiful she looks. Mm-hmm. And I was really I really kind of paused in that moment, because I thought, wow, that's really interesting. What an interesting thought, because when you see a little girl, usually you tell a little girl she looks beautiful when she's wearing a pretty dress, not in hockey equipment. So I thought it was pretty interesting. And she sat on the couch next to me, and she had a stuffed animal in her hand, and she was petting the stuffed animal, and she was mothering it. She was talking to it as if it were a baby. She was showing me that she could be loving and nurturing and also strong and powerful at the same time. And this thought came to me, I started thinking to myself, why do we think that as women, those have to be opposing forces? As a woman, we can be strong and powerful and also soft and nurturing and caring at the same time. And so it really, just that moment with her really started, to get the ball rolling. I never really lost sight of that image and what she was kind of portraying to me at this really young age. She was probably only 2 or 3 at the time. Mm-hmm. And the poem, the idea of it, I would often just think about that moment of her in her hockey gear, flexing her muscles, and, the moment after that when she was petting her toy kitten. And, I remember just being down here in Tampa and just walking around, and, the poem came to me, I'm a princess of a different kind. My superpower is my super powerful mind, essentially. So, that true beauty comes from within, and that if you use your mind, you can really be anything you want to be.
Yeah, that's really, really important. And I know when I became the father of a daughter,
Yeah.
I didn't have that same kind of conscious awareness of my thinking that you've expressed, but I do know that one of the things I sat down and expressed to my daughter was that she had the power to do anything she wanted in her life, and that we were going to support her to do anything she wanted to do in her life. I didn't feel the need to tell that to my son, although I think we, expressed that in terms of, supporting what he wanted to do and what are your dreams and things like that. But I do know that I went out of my way to make sure my daughter knew that she could have those dreams.
I love that. And I love hearing that it came from you as a father, that you validated her. I think it's very important because people ask me, you wrote this about your little girl and, how do you relate it to your sons? Because you have boys as well. And I agree with you. When I was a mom and I had my older sons, I just let them run around and conquer the world, just do what you want to do. And of course, I'm supporting you along the way. But it wasn't until, I really had her that I really thought about it differently. Mm-hmm. I thought about her in the world differently. Mm-hmm. And I love that my sons see how powerful she is. And I think that that'll be great for them down the road to learn how to walk alongside and empower women as well. I think that's a really strong message coming from a dad, and I applaud you for that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. She's amazing, but that is also one of the, when my kid, my son was a baby, we heard how beautiful he was and all of that. And we just kind of took that. But my daughter, who is absolutely gorgeous, when she was a baby, it was like, oh, she's so pretty. But it was constant. Yeah. It got to be, I think I related this one time. We were actually sitting in a restaurant, and my wife and my son got up to get something, and a waitress came by, and I think my daughter was maybe 3 years old, and she was sitting in there, and waitress dropped her tray, and I said, oh, are you okay? She goes, oh my goodness, your daughter's so beautiful. She took my breath away.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It was cute. Well, but my daughter and I both looked at each other going, this woman's looking for a tip.
Right.
But it was at that moment that I said to her, I goes, you are really pretty, but you remember it's more important to be beautiful on the inside.
I agree with you. And I think that people say that to little girls without even, never does it come from, it's always a genuine kind of, loving way to, show someone or to talk to someone. It's an act of kindness. Yep. But what we don't realize is that we're actually doing a disservice to them, because I've never had anyone come up to my sons. Even my daughter, she's 6, she's 7 now. People come up and say, oh, you're so pretty, Isla. But no one goes up when people first approach my children, my other sons. They always say to them, hi, how are you? How is school going? How are things with sports? Mm-hmm. They talk to them more about what they're doing, mm-hmm. as opposed to when they talk to my daughter, that always comment on how she looks or what she's wearing. And it's just interesting to see that different dynamic play out.
It is really interesting. And again, before, I'm not going to say I was clueless, because obviously there was some kind of seed growing inside me. And I think that seed was planted. I had a lot of very strong female friends. And then, of course, my wife is an amazing woman, and who's also very strong and very competent and capable. So I think that seed was planted, kind of subconsciously in me. But I was, I kind of lived my life kind of clueless. And I was one of those people who would always just compliment, oh, you look beautiful today. And yeah. I never thought of it as demeaning or an insult, but I can kind of, now that I'm, approaching 100 years old, I can kind of understand that, yeah, it's, when the first thing that we notice about a person is the way they look, we're not acknowledging, their intelligence or their strength.
Right. Yes. No, it's true, and it's hard to acknowledge that, in a child, but, actually, and that's one of the ways when people say to me, well, how would you like to change that? Or how can I change that? When I talk to little girls, what are some tips into, helping me empower and validate little girls? And the easiest way to do that is to pretty much change your greeting up a little bit when you approach a little girl. Hi, how are you? And not necessarily the initial comment does not need to be about her physical appearance or what she's wearing. Kind of ask her how she's doing, how are things are going, who her friends are, what sports she's into, validating her likes and, who she is from the core, from her soul, what makes her beautiful. And so I really love that about my daughter, because my daughter loves to be active and creative. And that's where she garners her strength from, her inner beauty. And so I know when she's ice skating, or when she's horseback riding, or when she's dancing, or when she's playing with her brothers, that's when she, really feels empowered in herself, and not necessarily from what she has on that day.
How does Isla feel about being the subject of this book?
She loves it. She absolutely loves it. She loves that, it's this book, has really changed her life in so many ways. I realized that when she was little that she used to try to emulate me all the time. And I thought to myself, I've always loved writing. It was a passion of mine. I knew I had a children's book in me from when my oldest was born. And I thought to myself, you know what? She's copying everything I do. So how can I show her how to be her best self, or to live out her dreams, if I'm not doing that? So she loves that we wrote it together, and she helped me pick out, all the pictures that we sent to the illustrator. And she actually walks around with a little notebook in her hand now, and she says, I want to be a writer like you, Mom. And she loves it. She loves that we're starting to share the message now with our friends. We have a few other interviews lined up, and she gets to actually talk about it herself. So I think that's really empowering and validating, that not only that I get to kind of tell who I think she is from my perspective, but that she kind of gets to share that from her own. I think it's really important. It's actually really nice as a mom to sit back and let her say who she is and, validate herself. And I think that's really important to, as a parent or as an adult, to kind of let little girls have that moment where they get to use their own voices to say who they are, because, it's quite empowering for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And your sons, are they wanting their mom to write a book about them?
My youngest is. He's definitely he's definitely like, wait, why are you guys getting to do all this fun stuff without me? So I can see a future children's book including him, because he's been very inspiring, given that he's kind of really loved what we're doing. And I really think it's important for my older sons to see it as well, that they get to see Mom, going on this special journey, living out her dream and doing it and being inspired by their sister. And then that we get to do it together. I think, looking at our family dynamic, it's, affected all of us. And so it's really nice for, I think, boys to kind of see, Mom and Isla doing this really powerful thing and having this wonderful message to share.
Yeah. As you're speaking and I absolutely agree. It's really important for us to empower our girls and to, be conscious of how we address them and make sure that we're encouraging them to be their best selves. But I also think it brings up, the fact that we need to be conscious of the way we're communicating to all of our kids, our boys and our girls. And, I think that there's a lot of expectations that we communicate to guys kind of unconsciously. I was shocked. There's, one of my son's best friends was a super athlete all through, and a great football player and through Pop Warner and high school. And, I sat down with him one day after he graduated from high school and said, so were you going to play football in college? And he turned to me, he said, I hate football. I have always hated football. I'll never play football again. And it was just that he just felt this pressure to go out there and to to live up to somebody else's expectations. And
right. Well, I think, I talk at, I agree with you. And one of the things that has really resonated with me is, as a parent, is that all too often we, put our childhood or, what we've learned from childhood or our own expectations on our children. And, sometimes when they see you get excited about something, they get excited about something, but it's really important to sit back and kind of listen to what they're really telling us, because ultimately this is their life to live, and it's up to us to kind of help and guide them along the way. And so that by the time they do get to college, they, have other experiences or can, explore other things that they're passionate about. And one thing I talk about in the book is that, you have the right to change your mind along the way. You're not going to be the same person that you are, or that she was, my daughter was when she was 3 years old, and, she's very different now. So, kind of just finding ways to help inspire them, throughout their journey and positively support them, boys and girls.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I mentioned in my educational magic shows. I'm always encouraging kids to dream and to think about what it is they want to do, and letting them know that it's absolutely okay for you to change your mind once or twice or 1,000 times.
Right. I mean, also, I think we ask kids, like, what do you like to do? And sometimes they kind of just don't know. They haven't had the experiences yet to kind of know what they enjoy and what they don't enjoy, or something that could become a passion. So, you sit back as a parent, you let them really, start to explore that and, support it along the way.
And I think that's so important to remember to let our kids explore things. I see kids right now and they're amazing, but they specialize in things at such a young age, and to the exclusion of other things. And, specialization and working really hard and being, really shining in one or two areas is wonderful, but it shouldn't come at the expense of exploring other areas.
No, I agree with you. My daughter has loved to try many things along the way, my sons and my daughter. So it's really important for us to kind of, allow them to explore the journey. And it doesn't necessarily have to define them from the beginning. I think, when our children start to, especially talking to your son's friend to the point of that, in childhood, when you're only kind of doing one thing, you kind of start to think that that's who you are. Mm-hmm. And, you have a sense of self related to doing that activity. So, I think it was really interesting that by the time he went to college, he was like, you know what, this isn't just who I am. I'm not just a football player. Like, I can be anything I want to be, like not only just dreaming big, but dreaming kind of like beyond what you would think possible.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things I noticed on your website is that you refer to yourself as an advocate for cystic fibrosis. Right. Before we end, I want to just give you a chance to talk about that. Maybe give us a thumbnail about what cystic fibrosis is and why it's so important for you.
Cystic fibrosis is very important to me because it affects one of my family members. So I love to use my voice to raise awareness and bring support. Donating to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. It's a nonprofit, and all of the research that comes from the foundation in finding a cure. When you donate directly to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, it goes directly into research. It was the only foundation that didn't have any funding from the government, and they walked to medical facilities and research facilities and said, help us find a cure. And so, there's so many advancements with it now. It's such a, if you were ever to have a time to be born with cystic fibrosis or living with it, the promise for a cure is, coming soon. And so, donating to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, you're giving those of us that, care for someone with it, the hope that there will be a cure, and, helping, empowering, and validating the foundation and people like myself to continue to move forward. With the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation is such a wonderful foundation, and they actually just today said that they have a $500 million grant that's going not just to finding drugs that are going to help the underlying cause of it, but they're on this mission now to directly find a cure for it. So, there's so much promise along the way, and we are super excited and super thrilled for the advancements that are going on. So thank you to everyone who supports the foundation.
Excellent. Well, I mentioned that I learned that from visiting your website, and your website looks fantastic. Tell everybody where they can find the website.
Yes, my website is JainaThatch.com. You can find more information about me. You can find information about the book and its message. You can find, quotes about people who have loved the book and how it has changed their little children, their little girls to kind of dream beyond what their wildest dreams, and that their true beauty comes from within. The book is available on my website, or it can direct you to Amazon. It's now on Barnes & Noble. Lots of wonderful things, and, kind of where you can find Isla and myself, as well, with our upcoming speaking engagements.
Now, if folks purchase the book directly from you through the website, are you able to autograph it and personalize it for folks?
I am. So if you order it through me, or if you contact me, I will be able to order it for you, and I will be able to sign it and send it out to you.
That's fantastic. And when you're looking for JainaThatch.com, remember Jaina is spelled a little bit differently. It's Jaina Thatch.com. I've had a blast speaking to you. I love that I'm speaking to the mom of a very powerful young woman, and I can't wait to hear all the great things that she's going to do in her life.
Thank you. This is just the beginning. And I'm along for the ride.
We want you to check.
We'd love to take you on this journey with us too.
That's great. We want you to check out My Superhero Mind. It could be a great addition to your family library. We've been speaking to the author, Dr. JainaThatch. Jaina, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jed. I really enjoyed my time with you.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Kelly Gretler. She is going to be celebrating her beautiful, and it is absolutely beautiful, picture book called God Always Hears. That's the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very, very wonderful. Of course, we want to thank Jaina Thatch. Be sure to check out My Superhero Mind. Also want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. Don't miss her blog at readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support that she gives me. And, of course, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And, as always, thank you so much for making the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.